Because when you can begin looking and noticing what works in your business, instead of always paying attention to what's not working or what doesn't feel good, you suddenly have a different relationship. That relationship transforms.
Hi, welcome to the Tarun Stevenson Leadership Channel. I'm your host, Tarun Stevenson, and we are all about helping you lead, communicate, and grow to your full potential. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite podcasting app, don't forget to subscribe and follow so that you can stay up to date with all our latest episodes. All right, here's the latest episode. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, Tarun here. I'm here with Fletcher Ellingson, and he is a personal coach and business coach, speaker, TV host. He's been a lifelong student of personal evolution, been mentored by some of the world's greatest authorities in transformational living, and he is here to talk to us today about breaking free from the habitual disempowering thinking that can trap so many of us and helping us to live our lives with freedom, both in business and our personal life. Welcome, Fletcher. So good to have you on the show.
I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I hope I did you justice with that intro. I was a bit fumbling a bit there, but why don't you just tell us a little bit about you and what your journey has been to this point?
Yeah. So I'll be brief with this because this could be a long story, but I'll be brief. My journey in personal development actually started when I was in third grade.
Okay.
We had an inspirational speaker come to our elementary school, and at the end, he gave a wonderful a wonderful speaking engagement. I'm sure I don't remember any of it. But the one thing that I do remember is that he handed out stickers to everybody at the end. They were reflective stickers that you could put on your backpack.
Okay.
And I put mine on my metal bedpost, on the frame of my bed. And I still remember what it said. It said, "Start your day with PMA, positive mental attitude." And then the other thing that said, "Expect something wonderful to happen today." Well, right. I saw that every single day. And at the age, in sixth grade, I picked up a copy of Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking.
Right, great book.
And yeah, right. And so I still remember the day my dad came out on the porch. I was sitting on the porch. It was a sunny day. I was reading Norman Vincent Peale's Power of Positive Thinking. He said, "Hey, Fletch, what you reading?" I said, "It's a book called The Power of Positive Thinking." And he's just like, "What? You're reading that book? You're in sixth grade?" So he thought I was a bit of an oddball, and I guess I was.
Yeah.
But really, that's when my journey started. But here's the cool thing. As I took on coaching as a career and working with businesses to help them break free from financial struggle and management overwhelm and really create the business they love, I started to remember this guy who came to our school. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if he's still living. And so I looked him up, and I couldn't find much about him because most of his life happened before the internet, right? Sure. But I was able to track down his son. And I said, and he said, "Yeah, he's still living. Why do you want to reach out to him?" And I said, "Well, he made a big impact on my life." And I said, "If it's not okay to contact him, please give him my phone number." Yeah. And about 2 or 3 weeks went by, and I got a call one day. I was driving my car, and it was him. It was this guy, and he was now in his 80s, mid 80s. And we just had this wonderful catch up. And I told him what I was doing, and I got to share the impact that he made in my life, decades ago. Wow. And he got to share with me what got him into doing it. And again, real quick, there was a tragedy where he had struck a child with his car one evening, and the child didn't live. Wow. And he was like, "What? How can I make sense of this? How can I take this, absolutely devastating tragedy and make something good of it, or take it and serve the world somehow?" And so what he did was he contacted, this is way before bike reflectors and reflective tape and everything. So what he did was he said, I'm going to go out and be a cause for people to be cautious at night when around cars when they can't see you. Make sure you're lit up. And so he contacted 3M, the company 3M,
Yeah.
and they said, you know what? We're going to print 50,000 of these stickers for you, so you can go and speak at elementary schools and raise awareness around being seen at night.
Wow.
And so that's how he ended up at my school. And that speaking engagement impacted the trajectory of my life to this day.
What a cool story. That's amazing. And, just thinking about how those small encounters can shift people's lives. What's the moment where you knew that in your adult life that, yeah, this is what I'm going to be doing? I mean, you had a shift as a child, but when did you make that shift into being a motivational speaker and coach in your adult life? What was the catalyst for you?
Yeah, you know what? I've always been interested in making an impact for people. Tony Robbins talks about the 6 human needs, and one of those human needs is a need to contribute.
Yeah.
And and that speaks volumes to me, because when you contribute, you get all the other human needs met in that act of contribution. And in my business life, I started a couple businesses. One crashed and burned big time. Great lessons, hard lessons. But I took those lessons and helped build a second business, which allowed me to travel across the country speaking to business owners and entrepreneurs and helping them get to that next level in their business. Right. And it was then where I realized, number one, I've got a solid message. Number two, I love doing this. And number three, it really is effective, because those people, they were changing their business. They were getting radically different results. Right. And from there, it just has gone onward, and I love it.
That's fantastic. Now you are currently working from the premise of practicing feeling good. That's your slogan, if you like, in business. Yep. And in life. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you come to this idea of practicing feeling good?
Yeah. So how I came about this was really looking at patterns in the results my clients were getting. Yeah. And every time a client was getting a particularly radical result, yeah. and actually, even as I say that, even if they were getting a small improvement, right, it was always tied to them feeling good. It was never about them feeling bad. It was the progress was always tied to them feeling good about themselves, about that particular area of life, about what was possible, about what they were learning. They were literally feeling good. And I began just diving deeper into that concept. And I realized that when we're feeling good, we make totally different decisions, right? And when we're feeling good, we have access to asking ourselves vastly different questions that move us forward instead of hold us back, right? And so the concept of practicing good, I really, when I talk about that, I mean practicing. Like, people practice law, they practice medicine. I've been a magician for several decades. I practice sleight of hand.
Yeah.
And when we stop practicing, we lose ground, right? I mean, let me ask you a question. Would you rather have heart surgery from a surgeon who's been practicing or who's been on a 2-year hiatus, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the concept of practice, I really mean by that is how do we take this concept and literally bring intention to feeling good?
Yeah.
And one of the ways I do that is simply by asking people, like, what did you do today that felt really good?
Great.
What did you do? What was a win today? Right? Taking our focus and focusing on something that literally feels good, that releases those feel-good chemicals in our brain.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you make that distinction, because I think probably one of the things I see in the coaching that I do and the people that I work with, a lot of the time people get stuck on this notion of, if I don't feel good, I shouldn't do it. And so a lot of the time they assess the viability of what they're doing by how they feel. But sometimes, when you're developing a skill, the practice part doesn't feel good. You have to do it
Right.
before it feels good, but that actually leads you to greater feelings of success, greater feelings of satisfaction when you've gone through that process. So talk to the person that perhaps they're going through the process of trying to change their mindset, or maybe they're up against an obstacle where they're just feeling overwhelmed. So the feeling is not good. But how do you get into that mode where you actually train yourself to think on what is possible, think about what good has been present in that moment so that they can actually transform their way of thinking and start changing their outcomes?
Excellent question. And this is really important. This is really key to how I coach my clients. So, you know, everybody, when they think of coaching, or many people, when they think of coaching, they think, oh, okay, great. I'm going to be setting a bunch of goals, and I may or may not hit those goals.
Yeah.
When we set goals, two things happen. Number one, we get excited by what's possible. Like if we focus on that goal, we're like, gosh, that'd be really great to have that relationship or make that money or get that career or whatever it is. But the second thing that happens is we activate our disempowering belief, the voice in our head that says, come on, get real. You haven't hit that goal before. It's never happened for you. You remember when you tried it and you failed? So you're activating these two different thought processes. And so sometimes that goal that you set, that very specific goal of, I want to make $100,000. Well, if that goal is too far out of your reach, the automatic thought kicks in like, come on, get real.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it. So here's how, and then you're in the field of, it doesn't feel good. Right? So what we do is how we turn that around is this: forget the specific goal. Forget the actual specific goal and let's go general. Let's go wide. Let's go very broad. How about making a goal of increasing my wealth? How about making a goal of allowing wealth to flow to me? How about making a goal of being open to more wealth coming to me? How about making a goal of every day appreciating that which I already have, which is a lot, right? And really how good it feels to have the car that I currently have, to have a place to live, to have food in the cupboards, to have money in my checking account. How good does that feel? And then let's gap backwards and look and say, in general, have things usually worked out for me? Has there been an upward trend in my life? Yeah. Have there been some dips and some potholes? Sure. But in general, has the trajectory been upward? And if the answer is yes, well, that feels good, right? And from that, I can actually step into a stronger sense of certainty that things will continue to go better for me, and that my goals actually are within reach, and I can hit these little baby step goals. And as I gain evidence to prove that that's possible, then I'll be more comfortable later to set the big money goal or the big thing goal or the big relationship goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good. And it's one of the things that I talk about when I'm coaching people in goal setting is it's good to have big goals, but if you don't have incremental steps along the way, you're probably going to give up before you get there, because most monumental shifts in our life take time. There's very, very few really significant changes in our life that just happen overnight. And I think what you've described there is so true. So many people give up before they experience change because they're shooting for something that's going to take way longer than perhaps they've factored in. It sounds like you're describing to me the process of reprogramming your thinking. You know, when you look at neuroscience, they talk about neural plasticity, the ability to reshape the way that our connections are made in the brain. And I remember when I was a teenager, my dad bought me a motivational cassette course by Paul J. Meyer, SMI. And, you know, there was a lot of positive thinking stuff in that. And so I sort of grew up like you, listening to that sort of stuff, reading those sorts of books. And a lot of people, when I was in my 20s, would say, oh, that's just positive thinking mumbo jumbo. That's not real science, but what I'm finding now is that neuroscientists are actually showing us, and psychologists, psychotherapists are saying, no, actually that's called reprogramming your thinking and reprogramming your behavioral habits. And it's actually really crucial to achieving the outcomes that you want in your life. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the process of reprogramming your thinking and why it's so crucial for flourishing in life?
Yeah. So sometimes it's easier for people to understand how this works by looking at what they're already doing. So what most people are already doing is, like, let's say you go to a party, you go to a cocktail party or a get together, and it doesn't take very long at all before you hear a conversation and it has really kind of degraded to talking about what's not working. The government's not doing this, or did you hear what so-and-so said, or so-and-so did, or gosh, my health is in the toilet, or, we're talking about things that are not working.
Yeah.
And the reason we're doing that is because we have become masters at that. We are so practiced at talking about what does not work that we don't even realize we're doing it.
Yeah.
And so the reason we're so good at that is because we've been practicing it our entire life. It's been modeled for us. We have been hearing it. We see it on the TV. Everything is geared towards what's not working. And so we've become master at that. We're very practiced. It in itself is a practice. So what I am all about in this curriculum is interrupting that pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we interrupt that pattern, I tell people this all the time, but if you could look into our household, you would think we're crazy.
Yeah.
Okay? Because my wife and I are always talking about what feels good.
Mm.
I mean, literally, I'm no joke. I mean, we get up in the morning and we make our tea and we're like, oh my gosh, doesn't this tea taste delicious? Yeah, it feels so warm on my hand. It feels so good. Oh my God, here comes the cat. I love cuddling with the cat and having our tea. It feels so good. We're always talking and noticing about what feels good.
Right.
And did it take practice? Yeah, and we still practice it, but here's what is exciting now. It's almost effortless much of the time.
Yeah.
We are noticing, we have programmed our minds to notice what is working well, and we point it out. I'll give you an example.
Yep.
Because this is one that I had a little bit of a tough time with. Where I live, there's quite a few outbreaks of COVID right now. Mm-hmm. And when I would go into the stores, not everybody was wearing their masks, and it didn't set well with me. I was like, I wanted people to wear their masks. It's the least they could do, was my thinking. And I was getting a little upset of it. I could feel like an upset starting in my chest. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm focusing on what's not working. Mm. Next time I went back into the store, I realized that 98% of the people were wearing masks. Yeah. So I changed my thinking so I was paying attention to everyone wearing a mask, and my internal monologue became this: wow, almost everyone's wearing their mask. Look at all those people wearing their mask. Yeah. These people we are making a difference. We are like going, this is progress. There's another person wearing the mask. That checker's wearing their mask. Oh, that delivery guy's wearing the mask. Wow, almost everybody's wearing their mask. Yeah. That feels really good.
Yeah.
And so that's the practice, right? And it seems kind of silly and elementary, but I'm telling you, it's a game changer when you apply this to other areas of your life, like your business.
Yeah.
Because when you can begin looking and noticing what works in your business, instead of always paying attention to what's not working or what doesn't feel good, you suddenly have a different relationship. That relationship transforms. When you start paying attention to how your spouse, all the things that they do that do work, that do feel good, yeah, that transforms your relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. And I don't want to pass over that too quickly, because I think you make a really important point that this practice of noticing the good in life impacts every area of your life. It's not just in yourself, but it will impact your relationships, it'll impact your parenting, impact your business, your employment. I do a lot of training with teachers around behavior management and managing
Mm.
difficult children. And one of the key things that I teach them is noticing the good, because it's so easy to zero in on the child that's naughty or doing the wrong thing. And that sets the tone for the whole lesson. But if you can start noticing the 25 kids in the class that are doing the right thing, it actually shifts the tone for everybody else as well. And, you know, you mentioned marriage, you know, notice the good in your partner, not the bad in your partner. I mean, those things are so important. And when I've talked to people about this kind of approach to life, you know, looking at the positive, looking at what's potential and what's good in your life, often the reaction you get is, oh, that's silly, or that,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel dumb when I do that. And, you know, you describe noticing even how good the tea feels, or the cat. And some people who I think, who, if they've never practiced it, it can feel a little bit unnatural. We
Yes.
seem to, as human beings, have this inclination towards the negative or the problem. We seem to notice that first. How do you overcome that feeling of, this feels dumb, or this feels silly, or nobody else around me does this, so why on earth would I, you know, make myself stand out by taking this approach? What would you say to that?
Great question. I'm so glad you asked that. Yes, it does take getting out of your comfort zone to begin to practice this. But here's the beautiful reward. Um, when I used to go to get-togethers, parties, family gatherings, there were frequent times where I didn't feel very comfortable
Yeah.
at making small talk. So what I did was I committed to sharing something that was going well in my life. And I committed to asking that person, which I'm meeting there, maybe for the first time, or someone I see, you know, once a year or something. I committed to asking them this question. So tell me what's been going well in your life.
Great.
And two things happened that are extremely interesting. Number one, this was usually the response I would get. I would say, so tell me what's going well in your life. And they would say, what's going well in my life? They would repeat the question back to me frequently because it's such a pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
And they would then pause and go, oh gosh, well, let's see. And they would come up with something that was going well.
Great.
And what was so cool about that was I was ready to celebrate with them and ask follow-up questions about why it was going well, or how come it felt good. Tell me more. And then what happened was, and I didn't intend for this, but the result was that I was creating these really positive associations with people. Right? And they were smiling. We weren't talking about politics or what was going on. We were talking about positive stuff. And next time I would see them, they were geared up and ready to talk about something positive.
Yeah.
And so I just had to commit to doing that. And it was a little bit uncomfortable at first, but now it's easy to do.
Yeah, that's great. And that's such a great example. Just something simple as what's going well forces you to think and focus on those things. I want to press you a little bit on this idea and just maybe flip the script for a moment. I've encountered in my life, and I've probably found that at different times of my life, I've been a little bit like this, where you get some people who really make an effort to be positive, but they do it to a level where they never really acknowledge when they either need help or they're struggling. And so it's like, whenever you talk to them, it's like, everything is amazing. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how amazing my life is. But you can see in their eyes they're stressed, or they're in pain, or something's going on, but they never open up or never talk about that. And sometimes that can be unhealthy as well. How do you find the balance where you don't stray into being inauthentic with your positivity? You know, because I think there's a place for being an authentic person where you're real about life, but at the same time, you don't want to let the problems steer your decision making or steer your thinking.
Yeah. So great question. So I think it's super important to to pay attention to your emotions. We have an emotional guidance system that is brilliant. And if we pay attention to that, really get curious about, hey, why am I feeling this way? Not covering it up. So really get clear. I mean, really get honest about your emotions. Get in a tune and in alignment with your emotions. If you're feeling off, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling upset, that's going to happen. I mean, I still have my upsets. Sure. Don't get me wrong. The difference is I don't get stuck there anymore.
Yeah.
I move through that quicker. So I always ask. So here's the question: like, if you're feeling upset, I tend to coach my clients and myself is like, get curious. Why am I upset?
Yeah.
Right. Like, why am I feeling? Am I feeling afraid of something? Am I feeling like there was a thwarted conversation or a thwarted intention? Am I blaming somebody? And if I'm blaming somebody, then that's a red flag for me to get curious about what's really going on.
Yeah.
So I always say, be honest about your emotions, get curious about them. What's the message of your emotion? And that's going to allow you to work through it much faster. And then you come out the other side, you follow that up by saying, great, now what did I learn about this? Yeah. How did that serve me? And what was great about that? Yeah. What was great about my upset? And now I can get back on track to the practicing of feeling good.
Yeah, so good. And there's a practice, cognitive behavior therapy, which is designed to help people interrupt their tendency towards negative thinking. And one of the ways that they frame that question is to ask, okay, is that completely true? And if it is true, how could you frame it differently so that it doesn't feel like it's the end of the world? So reframing how you describe the situation, still acknowledging that there's a problem, but reframing it in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming. I want to push this thought just a little bit further because I think that was really helpful. What about when you're dealing with other people who maybe from where they are, they feel overwhelmed by life. They haven't necessarily got the habit of positive thinking or feeling good about their situation or being able to reframe it. And I find that with emotional intelligence, there's a need to show empathy and show that you understand where they're at and not be dismissive. So, if somebody's going through it, it's not going to be helpful to them for me to say, hey, just think positive. That's going to be fairly insensitive. But at the same time, absolutely, I don't want to keep them stuck there. I want to help them move beyond that point. What does a conversation look like when you're trying to help someone and still be empathetic without letting them wallow in self-pity?
You got great questions. I love it. So here's a wonderful methodology. We use this a lot with our kids, and some of our kids are adults. But we also use this methodology, my wife and I, because I think there's great value in sitting in your emotion, and not rushing through it. So let's say a client comes home and they just had a crappy day at work. God, my boss is a jerk. No one follows the policies. No one even knows what the policies are. This is a waste of time. When I hear that, oftentimes I'll say, so it sounds like you think your boss is a jerk and no one's following policy. And you kind of felt like a waste of time today to go to work. Is that accurate? Yeah, that is. And then I'll say, is there anything else? Yeah. I was supposed to have this meeting with so-and-so. That didn't even happen. And that sucked because I was supposed to talk about next week's presentation. Yeah. And so I'll say, so it sounds like you're supposed to have this meeting that got canceled where you're supposed to talk about something important happening next year. And that was really disappointing. Is that accurate? Yeah. And so I'll say, is there anything else? And we'll have this dialogue. And this is such a brilliant dialogue with kids, because kids frequently don't feel like they're ever heard.
Yeah.
they always have more to say about the subject, right?
Mm.
But they're frequently cut off and say, okay, well, let's rush to the solution.
Yeah.
This process allows you to get everything out. You keep on asking them, is there anything else? And you repeat back to them what they said, so they know that they were heard.
Mm. Mm.
And you, is there anything else? Is there anything else? Is there anything else? And at some point, and this is so, I love this, at some point, because I remember doing this with our kids, at some point they say, no, there isn't anything else. And the experience for that person is they were totally, completely heard.
Yeah.
Which is so rare, right?
So good.
Yeah. And then at that point, now they've emptied it all out. They're much more likely at this point to be willing to move forward.
That's great. That's great.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I love that practice, because, and that would apply to a marriage. That applies to leaders when you're having conversations with your team. In fact, I was talking to somebody just this morning, and she was relating to me how she had a line meeting with her manager, and the manager started the meeting by saying, right, let me start by telling you what issues I've got. And he unloaded on her, and then gave her 2 minutes to talk about her challenges. And then he wrapped the meeting up and walked off. And she said, I felt so dismissed, so, unimportant, because he didn't even take the time to give me a chance to speak or listen. And I think that that's so true of many relationship conflicts. They really come down to everybody's listening to respond rather than listening to really hear the other person.
You got it. You got it. And this fits perfectly into the concept of the practice of feeling good.
Yeah.
This type of dialogue where you let somebody get it all out and you reflect back to them what you're hearing, not adding a lot, just reflecting back the words they're saying, following it up by, is there anything more? Is there more? Right. Is that accurate? Is there more? Till they're done, that process falls under the umbrella of practicing the feeling of good.
I love it. That's so good.
Yeah.
So Fletcher, if somebody wants to maybe make a start, or they want to start shifting the way that they're thinking and the way that they're feeling about their life, what are some easy steps? You've given us some great pointers in different scenarios. What are some easy steps that they can take towards starting the practice of feeling good?
Yeah. One great practice is getting things out of your head into the physical world.
Okay.
And by that, I mean, start speaking, literally speaking the sentences that feel good. I'll give you an example. This morning I woke up and I had this thought. I was so excited about this. I woke up, I had this thought in my head, and it felt so good. And I immediately got up and I shared it with my family. And the thought that was in my head is I wrote it down here, is I meet the moment with a light heart and navigate the now with ease and joy. And I don't know why that was in my head, but I just loved it and it felt good. I meet the moment with a light heart and navigate the now with ease and joy. And so it felt so good. I instead of just keeping it inside, practicing what I preach, I got it into the physical world. I shared it with people. And then I went for a swim. We live in this unbelievably picturesque area in North Central Washington. And the whole while I was swimming, I was just repeating that sentence. So as I was moving my body, it was meditating, like getting familiar with the concept. And that felt good. So to answer your question, a place to start is getting it out of your head. When you notice something that you like, talk about it. Like a guy, one of my clients on a call last night was talking about how he loves looking at boats online and how he loves looking at car parts and things for his car. And it's like, great. Talk about it, share it, journal about it, getting it into the physical world instead of keeping it up here, because this can be a scary place up here, right?
Yeah.
So let's get it out and share it, because when you share it, it magnifies the experience frequently. Yeah. And obviously you want to share it with people who are going to have your back and be in it with you. Good. But whatever you focus on, you feel, and whatever you focus on, you magnify, and ultimately you manifest.
Yeah, so good. And I want you to talk a little bit more about sharing with people that you know have got your back. Jim Rohn famously said, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. How do you choose that inner circle of people in a world where very often the people that we work with, or maybe even the people we live with, can be so negative and have a tendency to drag us down? How do we find those people and choose those people wisely that can actually build us up and help us to shift our ways of thinking?
Yeah, well, so great question. Because yeah, we usually rise or sink to the standards of those around us, right?
Yeah.
And so that is one of the wonderful things about social media. You can find the group that you want to be a part
Yeah.
of. You know, your listeners can they can connect with you on a daily basis, probably, if they want. And you know, via social media, find that group that really makes your heart sing, or that's doing what you want to do, or get around the people that are being the way that you want to be.
Yeah.
And it'll fill you up. And your standards will change, and you begin thinking differently, speaking differently, acting differently, and you get different results. But really, it's seek out the people who have the results that you want, and connect, and just simply connect with them. Start following them on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and use their inspiration. You take their beliefs and let them fill you up.
Great. That's such good advice. And, you know, I noticed when COVID first hit, and probably as we got a month into it, it seemed like my news feed was just filled with angry people, you know, venting their frustrations about everything that was happening. And one of the things I did was I actually turned off a number of people in my feed. I didn't unfriend them. I just stopped seeing them in my feed. And I went and followed a bunch of channels that were going to give me positive updates in my news feed. So, you know, great advice. You can actually choose what voices you listen to. You don't have to listen to those negative or angry voices if that's all you've got coming through. That's fantastic. Fletcher, if people want to find out more about what you do, maybe get involved in your course or your coaching, how do they get involved with you?
Yeah, the easiest way to contact me is you can go to my website. It's www.fletcherellingson.com. And actually, you'll be able to use the practiceoffeelinggood.com soon. Hopefully, by the time this airs, I'll have that pointed at it.
Great.
But fletcherellingson.com or thepracticeoffeelinggood.com. You can reach out to me there. You can also connect with me on Facebook. Just go to Fletcher Ellingson, and you'll see me there. And let's start chatting and connecting.
Great. That's awesome. I've really appreciated the wisdom you've shared with us today. Is there any last thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners before we wrap up our conversation?
I just want to emphasize again that, yeah, if you want positive results, if you want feel good results, if you want that dream life, it really does start with the intentional practice of feeling good. Yeah. Because what I want to reiterate is, when you feel good, you make very different decisions, which lead to very different actions, and which lead to very different and supportive results.
Yeah, such good advice, and so important, especially in today's climate and with all the challenges that people are facing. I think more than ever, we need messages like yours, Fletcher. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you got a ton of value out of that episode. Don't forget to let us know what you thought in the comments. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover next time, we'd love to hear from you. If you know anyone that would benefit from the content that we produce, please like and share this channel. And we look forward to having you next time on the Tarun Stevenson Leadership Channel.